Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys and gals a little bit about why strength training is absolutely critical as we get older. Again, one of these topics where a lot of people are like, well, we shouldn't really try to lift heavy as we get older, or older lifters who are starting out, again, maybe 30, 40, 50 years old. Well, they shouldn't be lifting heavy, and I'm going to completely disagree here. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing a lot of light work. I'm not saying they shouldn't be isolating stuff. I mean, I'm 48. I do plenty of isolation work. It makes up the majority of my workout. But I still come in and do my heavy lifts, which you guys see me kind of displaying, here at the start of this video. You'll see me doing a triple there, pause at the 315 bench. You'll see me doing a 585 deadlift. Pretty clean 585, so it's not everything I have. You see like a 505 squat on a 12-inch box. So, and I'm not telling people they need to lift this heavy, by the way. So let me make that clear. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there's a point where we have to understand that things like bone mineralization, sarcopenia, all this stuff is extremely critical as you get older. And we should be doing some relatively heavy lifting with good form. And when I say heavy lifting, notice I said relatively. Obviously, if your max squat is 60 pounds, then 60 pounds is really, really heavy. Okay? Obviously, I don't expect you to squat 400 or 500 pounds if your max squat is 60. But we come over to the point, when I say strength training, I do mean that we need to do these big structural exercises, preferably with a barbell. And the reason for that is because the weight loading on the body, right? These big, big structural movements, and the heavier we go, the better, the more it improves things like bone density. And we have to be clear, like loss of bone minerals is a big deal. And I've known coaches who are like, I have elderly clients, like grandmas and stuff, come in and do maxes. They're like, yeah, I have a max on a deadlift. I've known a coach who's like, we max on the deadlift, we max on the squat, we max on the bench, and we max on the trap bar. And he was like, I have them all my clients do it once a month. And he had a bunch of housewives and grandmas and, even women in their 50s and early 60s, in his gym. And he's like, yeah, they do this. But you know what? And their max lift might only be 95 pounds. Let's keep that in mind on some of the big lifts, not even the bench. Obviously, the bench, he's like, some of them, the grandmas, if we get to where we add any tiny plates to an Olympic bar, we're happy. So let's be clear when we say that. But he's like, we do heavy singles and we do test their maxes with good form. And people who say, well, that's crazy, they shouldn't be doing that. Why? It's not that high risk. It really isn't. With good form. If you can perform the lifts correctly, to do a training max, meaning you go for a weight that's really heavy, but not to the point where your form breaks down trying to get one rep. Okay, that's going to have strength training carryover. It's going to improve neural drive. And here's the things that we need to think about. The loading, that heavy loading, of loading the heavier weight, nearly close to the heaviest weights that you can handle and subject your whole body to, improves bone density the much. This is well documented in the research. So if your goal is to keep as much bone minerals in your legs, in your back, right, through your spine, through your hips, through your femurs, all this stuff, heavy lifting will facilitate that. And the heavier, the better. And again, if you can do 10 reps with it, see where I'm going, it's probably not that heavy. So yes, some of your training every week should absolutely be geared towards, some squats or some deadlifts in that 1 to 5 rep range. Okay? And I'm not saying you can't do a bunch of hypertrophy work after that. I'm saying you can't even train like I do, to where power building, to where I do my heavy lifts at the start, but some of my workouts are literally one heavy set. Right? Do that 585 deadlift. I didn't do a bunch of 600 pound stuff afterwards. I do stuff like what you see right here, to where I just do high rep good mornings, reverse hyperextensions. I might do some back down work on a deadlift or some axle bar work or whatever. Okay? But it's mostly going to be above 5 reps at that point. Same thing on the squatting. You might see me do that heavy box squat for that one top set. And then we'll do some speed work with chains or bands. Then some machine work for legs in the 12 plus rep range, And that's okay. But we need that heavy work. And we also need that neural drive. Why? Loss of upper threshold motor units starts to occur more and more with age. And it happens, eventually it's going to happen no matter what, but you can stave it off. And by really hitting some of the big lifts where you're training the peripheral nervous system to continue to use those upper threshold motor units that fire the fastest twitch muscle fibers. Because if we don't use them, we can start losing them faster. So that's the idea. This is why with age, speed slows down. Like athletes get slower, lifters get slower, because they're losing access to those fastest twitch fibers, those true power explosive fibers. Then it's through the nervous system degenerating. Okay, doing some of the heavy lifting can help keep this working longer. You're keeping your peripheral nervous system able to hit those muscle fibers, keeping those neural pathways alive, because they're going to die off. And believe me, they're going to die off eventually otherwise, but can you hold on to them an extra 10, 20 years? Is that worth for quality of life? Same thing with the bone density, getting that bone density as high as possible, staving off osteoporosis, staving off osteoarthritis. All right, this is done with the heavy work. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not saying we can't do some of this lighter stuff, and we shouldn't do them as the majority of our training has it. Okay? I mean, I'm perfectly fine if you do a little bit of heavy lifting for the older lifter and they need the strength training, they want to do everything else in the 10 to 15 rep range. You know what? That's fine. But they need to get some time under a heavy barbell. They need to be picking up a heavy barbell. They need a heavy barbell on top of their back. Okay? Because we have to get those loads and that stress put on the body, that adaptative stress will help stave off those parts of the aging process. Okay? It will stave them off so that you can keep a high amount of bone density. You know, and again, we can keep those neural pathways alive and functioning that we need. Right? And too many people get that idea, well, we're getting older, we have to. No. You just may not be able to lift as much, sure. But I'm going to argue that you're actually at a higher risk of injury in general if you don't work on these things and you don't get that bone density high and you don't do all these things. Okay, is actually going to help you, because you don't want to be that person who you fracture that hip or any of that. You don't want to be that person. That is a death sentence. 90% of people are dead within 3 years after their first hip fracture who are over the age of 55. 90%. So yeah, we need that bone density. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.